Delhi, you're watching DD India News Hour with me, Munmun Bhattacharya. Let's get started with the top stories. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi lands in Johannesburg, South Africa to attend the 15th BRICS Summit. India's lunar mission Chandrayaan-3 closes in on a historic landing on the moon's south pole. Japan to start releasing treated radioactive water from the Fukushima nuclear plant into the ocean from Thursday. And Indian chess grandmaster R. Pragnanda eyes up a dream victory in the final of the FIDE World Cup. Now, the latest on DD India's BRICS coverage. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi has landed in South Africa's Johannesburg for the 15th BRICS Summit. He was received by the Deputy President of South Africa, Paul Mashatile. This will be the first in-person BRICS Summit since 2019. The summit will provide an opportunity to review progress of initiatives launched by the grouping and identify future areas of activity. The Indian Prime Minister will also participate in a special event, BRICS Africa Outreach and BRICS Plus Dialogue, to be organized after the BRICS Summit. It will also include other countries invited by South Africa. Upon arrival, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi received a ceremonial reception at the airport. So Prime Minister Narendra Modi has arrived in Johannesburg, South Africa for the 15th BRICS Summit. Prime Minister got a rapturous welcome. He was welcomed by members of the Indian diaspora. Remember, 3% of the population in South Africa comprise members of the Indian origin. And there is a very strong emotional bond between India as well as South Africa. And there you can see members of the Indian diaspora, children, youth, the elderly, they've all gathered outside the airport in Johannesburg to welcome Prime Minister Narendra Modi. For more, we are being joined by correspondent Leon from Johannesburg. Leon, PM Modi is in Johannesburg. Day one will see BRICS Business Forum meetings. To begin with, what's on the agenda?
Well, the first half of the day's discussions entirely hinged on the opportunities that the BRICS bloc can provide, not just to the member or the partners within the bloc itself, but those that could care to join and have the interests shared within the bloc. And one of the discussants here highlighting the fact that there's been a growth of, well, trade between the BRICS countries, approximately 7%, if not more, annually over the past few years. And also the investment opportunities, the development opportunities that could come through with, involvement with China, if anything, Russia, and even still Brazil, they're in, and India at that. So the discussions have taken a break so far. They'll be coming back in a few minutes to, well, further progress on those kind of opportunities and potential that the BRICS bloc could provide.
The leaders' retreat will be the next event of the day. Will it be an opportunity to break the ice and hold some difficult conversations too around the implications of, say, the Russia-Ukraine conflict and maybe bilateral issues as well?
Well, certainly yes, and if you quite look carefully, one of those issues will be the relationship between India and China. That has been a bit sore over the past few years, and probably now this will provide an opportunity for the two leaders of those countries to discuss those kind of barriers that they have therein. But then also extensively is for President Cyril Ramaphosa to further emphasize the need for Russia to come to a peaceful conclusion or end of that conflict that they're involved in with Ukraine. That conflict has cost not just South Africa, but also Africa at large in terms of energy and access to food, grain at that, and just as much export. So yes, there's definitely going to be an opportunity to break the ice, like you put it, and even still not just for the BRICS members, but all those leaders that are here in attendance.
Also, Leon, South Africa's BRICS Sherpa has said that new members will likely be added in this summit. What are you hearing on who could be added this time around, since several countries have applied?
Well, probably that was a bit too quick of a decision to put out. But yes, that is a process that has been going on, and the group they are in has still set out standards and the admission criteria for countries that have interests of being part of this bloc. And there are quite a number, at least 20 so far that we have been told of. Iran, they're in Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, Algeria, Mexico, all those intending to be part of this bloc. Now, that is a decision that is still divided by, still has divided opinions within the members of the BRICS. They're in South Africa, Russia, and China still thinking the expansion is relevant. Brazil and India a bit skeptical about that quick decision to arrive at. But yes, it is one of those discussions on the table here, and possibly a decision could be made at the end of the summit.
Leon reporting from Johannesburg. BRICS will be expanded at the Johannesburg summit. This big announcement was made by South Africa's Sherpa, Anil Suklal. He said that BRICS leaders will be announcing the new members in the 15th summit. Our correspondent Amritpal Singh gets us this exclusive.
As the 15th leaders meeting of the BRICS summit kicks off here in Johannesburg, the grouping is focusing on developmental partnership with not just South Africa, which is the president this year and the host of this summit, but also by extension with the rest of the African continent. The other is reform of multilateral institutions and strengthening cooperation between the global south. To talk more about that, I have with me Dr. Anil Suklal. He's the Sherpa of South Africa for the BRICS summit. Thank you, Dr. Suklal, for speaking to us. Over 40 leaders or heads of state and government of over 40 countries converge here in Johannesburg. Would there be the talk of expansion of BRICS? Do you think, does South Africa think the time for expansion of this grouping has come?
Well, expansion is definitely on the agenda. It is something that was already cited in the declaration of last year, where leaders asked us to start the discussion of expansion and to look at developing guiding principles, standards, criteria and procedure for expansion. South Africa has been seized with this matter. We've had several Sherpa meetings discussing expansion, and we have completed our documentation around this issue.
Would the grouping be admitting new members at this summit?
Most likely. Most likely. Okay. Leaders will make an announcement after the meeting.
Climate change is an issue which affects the world. Would that be prominently on the agenda?
Absolutely. It is prominently on the agenda. It's an issue that we are discussing, and the devastation that it has on all of our peoples, our economies, our livelihoods, and what is it we can do collectively as BRICS to address the issues of climate change, climate action, and also to ensure that the global North commits and fulfill its commitments in terms of climate financing, in assisting developing countries, both with finance and technology, to address issues of both mitigation and adaptation.
What will be main on the agenda of the 15th BRICS summit?
In terms of the substance, of course, you've mentioned a very important point, the reform of the multilateral institutions. This is a standing item of BRICS leaders' agenda. As you know, the current multilateral global order is archaic, outdated, and almost dysfunctional, including the Security Council that's almost paralyzed and cannot address issues of global peace and security effectively. Since its outset, BRICS has been calling for a reform of global governance architecture.
South African residents of Indian origin are filled with excitement about the arrival of Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Let's hear from them.
Namaste Modi ji, my name is Rekha. I am from Bangalore, now living in South Africa for the last 15 years. I came to South Africa as a geologist and now I'm training as a psychologist. Regarding your work, it is really amazing, and especially in terms of digitization and safety for women, children and literally every citizen of India. Also, I'd like to welcome you to South Africa and hope you have a good stay here. Thank you for coming. Namaste.
Under his visionary leadership, India has witnessed an incredible digital revolution. His initiatives like Digital India have connected millions, bridging the urban-rural divide. Make in India campaign has ignited a homegrown manufacturing boom, creating jobs and making Bharat the fastest growing economy in the world. With Jan Dhan Yojana and Aadhaar, he has harnessed technology to provide financial inclusion and identity to millions who were previously excluded.
As you know, Shri Narendra Modi ji is a great leader and made every Indian proud. A warm welcome to Shri Narendra Modi ji to South Africa from Asa. Jai Ho Modi ji, Bolo Bharat Mata ki Jai.
Our correspondent Shubhendu Ghosh is on the ground at the summit and talks about the key issues set to dominate the agenda.
Talk about 5 key issues in focus at the 15th BRICS summit. First, expansion of the BRICS. There is greater likelihood of BRICS inviting in new members to its fold soon. All BRICS leaders are on the same page as far as expansion of this influential grouping is concerned. Second, developing common payment system. Prioritizing trade in local currency and devising a common payment system is high on the agenda. It will help developing countries tackle the hegemony of dollar and euro better. Number 3, reformed multilateralism. Economic strategies must be implemented with the vision of placing BRICS economies at the center of sustainable global economic growth. It will require real reform of global governance institutions. Number 4, climate change and sustainable development goals. Climate crisis need urgent interventions from the perspective of the global south. Financing, supply chains will have to be reimagined. It will determine the ability of these nations to achieve the sustainable development goals. Number 5, closer engagement with Africa. The theme this year at the BRICS summit calls for closer cooperation between BRICS and Africa. India is already a principal development partner in the region. So those are the 5 issues to look out for at the 15th BRICS summit. With Team DD India, Shubhendu Ghosh in Johannesburg.
So those were the 5 big issues. Still to come on DD India News Hour. A day before its planned historic landing on the moon's south pole, ISRO says the mission is on schedule. And Donald Trump says he plans to turn himself in to face charges of election interference.
Turning crisis into opportunity, transforming ideas into action, stories of real change, tales of sustainable solution. This series is going to tell stories of such change makers. Watch Change Makers on DD India. Turning crisis into opportunity, transforming ideas into action, stories of real change, tales of sustainable solution. This series is going to tell stories of such change makers. Watch Change Makers on DD India.
You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Unman Bhattacharya. All eyes are set on India's historic moon mission. The Chandrayaan-3 is scheduled to land on the moon's south pole tomorrow. Chandrayaan-3 is in its final moments of preparation to land. The Indian Space Research Organization will broadcast the landing event live from around 5:20 p.m. India time on the 23rd of August. Russia's Luna 25 spacecraft had crashed this weekend. It was also on its way to the moon. This means Chandrayaan-3 could become the first to land on the moon's dark side. This is the country's third lunar mission. India says it aims to study the moon's geology, water resources, and the potential for future human exploration. As the nation gears up to cheer for the success of Chandrayaan-3, the Nehru Planetarium in Delhi has put on display the models of the lander and rover expected to land on the lunar surface. DD India's reporter Debyendu Mondal spoke to the principal scientist Ritu Nath, who explained how it all will work.
India is on its way to make history. We are just hours away from landing on the moon's south pole, a feat which only 3 other nations have achieved so far. We are here at the Nehru Planetarium in New Delhi, where the several models which have been used in the Chandrayaan-3 mission has been displayed here. And I'm joined by principal scientist Mr. Ritu Nath to explain us what these modules are about and what the Chandrayaan-3 looks like when it will be landing on the moon's south pole expectedly by tomorrow evening.
Right. All eyes are now on the lander. There's a Vikram lander. You can see this model is a Vikram lander. So tomorrow at around 5:45, that lander will start descending for a soft landing on the lunar surface, and this entire process will take about 18 to 19 minutes. And this entire sequence is divided into 4 phases. First phase is called hard braking phase. Hard braking phase, that lander will actually descend from about 30 kilometer to 7.42 kilometer from the lunar surface. While it is traveling this much vertically, it is actually going horizontally 730 kilometer around. The second phase is called altitude holding. It is about 10 seconds. And this 10 seconds, this vertical height will reduce from 7.4 to 6.8 kilometer. The third stage will be the smooth braking phase, which is about 3 minutes, 20 seconds. This end of the smooth braking, it will be only at a height of 1.1 kilometer around. Then it will actually vertically descend. Exactly, it will vertically descend from 1100 meter. That time its speed will be, vertical speed will be about 2 meter per second, around 2 to 3, or maybe less than 2 even. That depends on the data at that time.
This is the Vikram lander, and this is the rover. What will be the job of the rover when it lands on the moon's surface? I understand that this is the vehicle that will make the soft landing, and after landing, the rover will move out of the lander. So if you could explain us what role will this rover exactly play when it lands on the moon's surface?
See, the Bikram, this is the lander. That's the main part now it is had, because it has 5 payloads. One of the payload is the rover itself. Okay, the rover is inside the Vikram lander, and the Vikram lander is also having 4 scientific instruments. Once the final touchdown happens, soft landing, after that only rover will come out. So final touchdown, the moment it touches down, the first mission objective is achieved. That is the soft landing on lunar surface. After that, the rover will come down and it touches the lunar surface and it starts moving. The second mission objective is fulfilled. That is the rover moving on lunar surface. Now the third mission objective is in situ scientific experiments. In situ means on ground, on site. So it has 6 sensors. 2 sensors are on the rover, 4 sensors are on the lander. Total 6 sensors. It will do various experiments.
What this 20 minutes of terror is, and how taking lessons from Chandrayaan-2 when we could not successfully land on the moon's south pole. So what have we learned, and what is this 20 minutes of terror?
Rather than terror, I would rather like to say this is an opportunity to learn from the mistake. When the Chandrayaan-2 could not land softly, but the data which we received during the descent phase was used to actually modify the lander. There is no terror as such. Only we can say this 18 or 19 minutes is a stage of descent with all likelihood that it will be able to land softly on the lunar surface?
Well, not only India, I think the whole world is holding its breath to see that this time the Chandrayaan-3 mission lands on the south pole of the moon and make India the only fourth nation in the world to land on the lunar surface. In fact, on the south pole of the moon's lunar surface. With camera person Ajay Chopra, this is Dibyendu Mondal for DD India.
And Dr. S.V. Sharma, former Deputy Director at ISRO, now joins us. So Dr. Sharma, how optimistic are you that Chandrayaan-3 will make a perfect soft landing this time around, less than 24 hours from now?
Good evening, and good evening to all the viewers. The confidence level is very, very high. From Chandrayaan-2 incident, whatever we faced while landing, the glitch, whatever we had in the last 3 minutes of its mission, we have come a long way. There had been improvements in the lander, there had been improvements in the rover, there had been improvements in terms of the engines, what has been adopted for the lander. Therefore, and also the algorithms, what have been used, the limits, what have been chosen, and the analysis, what has gone through, and the simulations, what has gone through, they are very, very, very extensive. ISRO has taken more than 3 to 4 years in terms of development of various models of lander and the rover. And they have done the experiments, and they've ensured that no stone is left unturned for its success. And in summary, I must say, this must be a success mission, and the confidence level is very, very high.
Dr. Sharma, historic landing is expected to throw up some historic findings too. How crucial will be the experiments that the rover will conduct on the moon's surface?
The entire experiment is scientific, and the entire experiment of taking the lander down to the moon surface and landing itself is the biggest scientific achievement. Then the rolling out of the rover onto the moon surface is another scientific achievement. The rover is expected to roll over the moon surface and take images, and also it carries a payload to see the quality of the earth, quality of the soil on the moon. That experiment is also going to be very, very crucial. In addition to this, the lander by itself has 3 major payloads. Those 3 major payloads are very important for us for all the scientific studies.
Dr. Sharma, we leave it at that. Thank you for joining us with your inputs. People of Indian origin gathered outside the hotel to welcome Prime Minister Narendra Modi in Johannesburg, who will be arriving there in a short while. DD India correspondent Amritpal Singh brings us more.
As Prime Minister arrives here in South Africa to take part in the 15th BRICS summit, there is visible excitement among a group of diaspora which have gathered here at the hotel where the Prime Minister is expected to arrive. Tell us, what is the sort of excitement in you to see the Prime Minister, and why this excitement?
Sir, the thing is, he is a unique person, a selfless person who is driving the nation with all its limits and all its efforts, and then putting people first and people's development first. Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas, Sabka Vishwas.
And you can see little children have also gathered. Why are you here?
To see Modi ji.
What about Modi that you want to see him?
To welcome him to our country.
All right. So you can see little children, people get their children along, and there is excitement amongst people to welcome the Prime Minister. You can see the diaspora lined up here at the hotel where the Prime Minister will be arriving in a short while from now.
Prime Minister Modi जब से इंडिया चला रहे हैं, इतना जास्ती इंस्पायर कर रहे हैं हम सबको, और इंडिया has grown to very big heights since he has taken over. और we are born in Africa, और हमको ऐसा लगता है हमारे देश में से somebody very like a giant is coming in to help our countries.
Really? So they believe that when the Indian Prime Minister comes here and they get to see him, a part of them, they say many of them are born here many generations ago. Their ancestors migrated here, but still that excitement and that connect with India remains. Is that right?
Yes, true. And Namaste India. My heartiest welcome to the Prime Minister. And India is one of the largest democratic country, as everybody knows. So I don't have to speak more about India and for its future sites, which actually Modi is on the pipeline of developing the same. And I feel really proud to be an Indian and born to be an Indian and live to be Indian and die for India also.
We are very proud of our Prime Minister, Mr. Modi ji. We are here to give him an honor. He did such a great work for India. So even we have to stand whole day and night, we will stand for him because he made India proud all over the world.
Clearly, you can see the excitement amongst the diaspora. They feel that Prime Minister Modi, as the chief executive of India, has brought glory to the country and by extension to them. With camera person Ankit Rawat and my colleagues Shobhendu Ghosh and Ashutosh Singh, this is Amritpal Singh from Johannesburg.
Let's now take a look at other stories making news. India's Minister of Road Transport and Highways, Nitin Gadkari, has launched the much-awaited Bharat New Car Assessment Program. The program aims to increase the safety standards of Indian automobiles, bringing them up to international standards. Principal Secretary to Indian Prime Minister Dr. P.K. Mishra held a high-level review meeting to take cognizance of the current reports regarding the detection of new variants of SARS-CoV-2 virus globally. He said that the COVID situation in India remains stable and the Indian healthcare system is always geared up. India's Supreme Court has announced an expert panel to study the population size of Himalayan towns. The experts are set to study the hill stations in Indian states like Uttarakhand and Himachal. The court's decision comes among environmental and ecological concerns, with reports of floods and landslides triggered by excessive rains in the area. And India's Meteorological Department has issued a 2-day red alert for Uttarakhand. Heavy rainfall is expected in parts of the region amid possibly flood warnings. Time for a breather. Still to come on DD India News Hour. Donald Trump says he plans to turn himself in to a court in Georgia to face charges of election interference. Thai Parliament picks Srettha Thavisin as the next Prime Minister, ending 3 months of political deadlock.
Turning crisis into opportunity, transforming ideas into action, stories of real change, tales of sustainable solution. This series is going to tell stories of such changemakers. Watch Changemakers on DD India.
You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Munmun Bhattacharya. Let's recap the top stories. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi lands in Johannesburg, South Africa to attend the 15th BRICS Summit. India's lunar mission Chandrayaan-3 closes in on a historic landing on the moon's South Pole. Indian origin leader Tharman Shanmugaratnam has been officially declared as one of the 3 candidates for Singapore's presidential poll, which takes place on the 1st of September. The president has a largely ceremonial role in the island nation. Former Deputy Prime Minister Shanmugaratnam is considered as the candidate of the ruling People's Action Party, which has been in power since 1959. The other 2 candidates are Nick Kong Song and Tan Kin Lian. Both are former business executives. More than 2.7 million citizens will vote on the 1st of September. Singapore's president has a 6-year term. Incumbent President Halimah Yacob's term will end on the 13th of September. Japan's government says safety is its #1 priority as it begins the release of treated water used to cool the wrecked Fukushima plant. TEPCO, the company in charge of the project, says it will only release a small amount over the first 17 days to ensure everything is working smoothly. DD India correspondent Chris Gilbert files this report. Let's now go across to Johannesburg in South Africa, where Prime Minister Narendra Modi is meeting members of the Indian diaspora. This is the hotel where Prime Minister will be putting up during his 3-day visit to Johannesburg for the 15th BRICS Summit. We saw earlier also that members of the Indian diaspora were enthusiastically meeting Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Prime Minister, every time he goes abroad, gets a rapturous welcome from the Indian community, and we are getting glimpses of that. Children, youth, the elderly, people very accomplished in their fields have been welcoming Prime Minister Narendra Modi in all of his overseas visits. And there you see a glimpse of that once again in Johannesburg, South Africa, where there are 1.5 million persons of Indian origin that make around 3% of South Africa's population. India and South Africa share a very close historical bond as well, because Mahatma Gandhi, India's father of the nation, started the Satyagraha movement there. And 2010 marked the 150th anniversary as well in the past of the first arrival of Indians in South Africa. So Prime Minister is there now for the BRICS summit, and the focus this time around is on 4 areas. One is developing a common pay system and using more of the local currencies of the 5 countries. The second is reforming multilateralism. The third is climate change and sustainable development goals. And the fourth is closer engagement with BRICS. Also, focus is going to be on promoting the issues that matter to the global south of the developing world, addressing their concerns as well. That is going to be a continuing theme from the BRICS summit to the G20 Leaders Summit in New Delhi. So Prime Minister Narendra Modi is being greeted by members of the Indian diaspora, and the Prime Minister receiving their greetings first, just after his arrival, as he was headed to the hotel. And now at the hotel, there are hundreds of members of Indian community that have gathered there to greet Prime Minister Narendra Modi and wish him the best of luck for a very productive visit to South Africa. When the Prime Minister goes to Greece after concluding his visit to South Africa, there too he will be addressing members of the Indian diaspora. So this is one element in Prime Minister's itinerary which is constant, and every time we see so much love being showered on him by members of the Indian community. And we are getting a glimpse of that once again. People holding the Indian flag while greeting Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Broad smiles on the faces of all those who've gathered there to receive the Prime Minister. This is expected to be a very productive visit. Day 1 begins with the BRICS Business Forum leaders, followed by the leaders' retreat. Tomorrow is the BRICS Summit, and a day after that, there'll be an outreach session with Africa and the BRICS Plus dialogue as well. Moving on with concerns about what impact the water release will have on the local fishermen, Japan's Prime Minister Fumio Kishida has emphasized the government's commitment to safeguarding the industry.
In 2015, the Japanese government and the Fukushima nuclear plant operators reached an agreement with local and national fishing stakeholders. The pact was to ensure Japan wouldn't proceed with wastewater disposal without any consultations. However, due to a significant buildup of water since the 2011 earthquake and tsunami, the government has had no other choice.
TEPCO is asked to swiftly prepare to start the water discharge in accordance with the plan approved by the Nuclear Regulation Authority. As for the specific release date, it's expected to be August 24, weather and sea conditions permitting.
Local Fukushima supermarket owners and fishermen are united against the release of the treated radioactive water. Their concern centers on potential damage to seafood quality that could impact sales and livelihoods.
They say it will be safe when it is diluted, but they haven't conducted any scientific research regarding what would happen as a result of discharging this much of the water over 30 years. I think it's unscientific at best to release it here, and it is sure to hurt sales of fish. That's why I am strongly against it. I don't want them to do it.
There is fierce opposition against this move, both regionally and globally. The Chinese government has voiced its concern, and in South Korea there is public outcry, with many there objecting the planned discharge.
Former US President Donald Trump plans to surrender to Fulton County authorities in response to charges relating to the 2020 election. Trump has agreed to a $200,000 bond and other release conditions after his lawyers met with the region's district attorney's office. Trump has been accused of being the head of a criminal enterprise that was part of a broad criminal conspiracy to overturn his electoral defeat. Trump now faces 91 charges across 4 separate criminal cases. At the same time, he's running for president in 2024. He denies any wrongdoing and slams the cases as politically motivated. For the latest, DD India correspondent Tony Waterman joins us live from Austin, Texas. Tony, will Trump surrender in Georgia and soon walk out on bail?
Yeah, that's exactly what is expected to happen. As you mentioned, his bail has been set at $200,000 US. He doesn't have to put all of that money forward, just 10% of that. But with the money in hand, he will be able to walk out of the Fulton County Jail after he is arrested and booked. This is the first bail that he is going to have to post. He hasn't had to do that in the other 3 criminal cases. This is also the first time that we could potentially see a mugshot of the former president, something that is normal procedure for every other accused criminal, but something that he has been able to avoid in these past cases. The officials in those cases using pre-existing photos of the former president, but the Fulton County Sheriff has said that he plans on treating Mr. Trump like any other accused criminal, which of course he is not. He is the former president. He is also the current frontrunner for the GOP for the 2024 presidential nomination, and this is an unprecedented 4th arrest of a former president. And this case really centers around these allegations that he tried to overturn the election results in the state of Georgia. He is facing 13 charges, including racketeering, conspiracy, and criminal solicitation. If he is found guilty, ultimately, he could be facing decades behind bars.
Tony, how is Georgia preparing then for the surrender?
Well, there's already a heightened police presence. There are barriers that are going up around the jail, and officials have said that they plan to have a full lockdown around the facility on Thursday. We don't know exactly what time the former president is going to be surrendering, but it will be at some point, he says, on Thursday. And if there's any indication in terms of these previous arrests that he's had in New York, in Florida, and D.C., there has been enormous media attention for those things, and there's even this possibility that there could be demonstrators, both supporters of the president and also critics of the former president. And don't forget that it's not just Donald Trump that needs to turn himself in. All 18 co-defendants also have been given this noon on Friday deadline to show up at this courthouse. And so we're expecting a flood of individuals who are going to be coming, and certainly the sheriff there and police officials do not want to screw this up. So there is a heightened police presence and for this event.
Tony, also in the presidential election campaign, will Trump's legal troubles be a talking point for both sides to whip up sympathy by one side and to point fingers by another? We're already getting a glimpse of that, at least in the Republican campaign, aren't we?
Yeah, we certainly are. This is something that is already happening at this point. Donald Trump has vehemently denied all of these allegations. He's called them a witch hunt. He says that they're intended to undermine his presidential campaign. And that message appears to be working, because every single poll right now is showing that Donald Trump has this significant lead over his 2024 Republican rivals. And in fact, some of those rivals taking up the language that he himself has been using, calling it a witch hunt, some of them pledging that if he is convicted in some of these federal cases, that they will pardon him if they are elected president. When it comes to Joe Biden, he himself is not commenting on these criminal cases, but certainly Democrats have been pointing to this as an example of Donald Trump not being fit for the presidency. So both sides certainly going to be using this and have been using this in the lead up to 2024.
Tony reporting from Austin, Texas. Cambodia has a new prime minister for the first time in nearly 4 decades. The newly elected parliament endorsed military general Hun Manet as prime minister on Tuesday. The new prime minister of Cambodia, Hun Manet, is the son of the old prime minister Hun Sen. Now, Mr. Hun Sr. became prime minister in 1985, where his time in office was controversial. Critics say he oversaw a rise in corruption, deforestation and violations of human rights. So will the son be just like his father? Here's Andrew Wood in Hong Kong.
Hun Manet is 45. He spent most of his career in the military, particularly the Cambodian Air Force. He was the first Cambodian to graduate from West Point, the very prestigious military academy in the United States. He then went on to New York University, where he did a master's degree in economics, and then went on to Bristol University in the UK, where he did a PhD in economics. So he's very well educated. Obviously, he's very well connected, given that his father is Hun Sen. Also, he's married to a daughter of the former Secretary of Labour in Cambodia too. What we don't know about him is how he is going to rule. Will he be more of a strongman like his father, who spent 4 decades in control as prime minister in Cambodia? Or will he want to open up Cambodia and engage with critics of Cambodia in the West and make the place more democratic? Andrew Wood in Hong Kong, reporting for DD India.
Let's now take a look at some other stories making news around the world. Hospital patients were evacuated onto a ferry in Greece due to the raging wildfires and a fresh heat wave that has struck southern Europe. Authorities urged residents to avoid the heat wave in France, Italy, Spain and elsewhere. Scientists have linked the dry and windy conditions to climate change. At least 8 people, including 7 children, are trapped in a cable car nearly 900 feet above a ravine in Pakistan after a line snapped. The children used the gondola to get to school in a mountainous area in Battagram, about 200 kilometers from Islamabad. 2 army helicopters are carrying out a rescue operation. Russia says its forces have destroyed a US-made military speedboat near Snake Island in the Black Sea. The Defense Ministry said a Russian warplane took out the vessel, which it said was carrying a Ukrainian landing group. So far, Ukraine's Defense Ministry has not commented. The African Union has suspended Niger from all its activities following the military coup. Last month's coup sparked alarm among Western allies and democratic African states, fearing it could allow Islamist troops to expand their reach. The economic community of West African states has been trying to negotiate with the junta, but it is ready to send troops into Niger to restore constitutional order if diplomatic efforts fail. We'll take another breather now. Still to come, in fact, on DD India News Hour, R. Pragananda faces Magnus Carlsen at the FIDE World Cup final. And Arsenal thrashes Crystal Palace in the Premier League clash.
Turning crisis into opportunity, transforming ideas into action, stories of real change, tales of sustainable solution. This series is going to tell stories of such change makers. Watch Change Makers on DD India.
Namaste India.
Namaste land.
Marhaban ila al-Hind.
Zari India.
Salam India.
Namaste India.
Namaskar Bharata.
Muy India.
Nahnu
Hunud. India.
Ma Hindi Hasti.
Mung Hindian.
Salam Hindustan.
We are India.
You're watching DD India News Hour with me, Munmun Bhattacharya. Thailand's Pheu Thai party has unveiled its 11-party alliance that will try to form a coalition this week. The alliance comprises 314 lawmakers and some military-linked competitors, but excludes the anti-establishment Move Forward party. Pheu Thai Coalition Party, which holds 314 out of 500 seats in parliament, announced Sritha Thavisin, a 60-year-old business mogul, as its prime ministerial candidate. Thailand's parliament is likely to vote on Tuesday on Thavisin's prime ministerial bid. Thailand's fugitive ex-prime minister returned after a 17-year-long exile on Tuesday. The return comes as his party seemingly seeks to form a new government with some of his biggest rivals. The former Thai PM Thaksin Shinawatra went into self-imposed exile in 2008, facing a raft of corruption charges following a military coup. According to a statement by the Supreme Court, he will serve a total of 8 years in prison. Voting begins in Zimbabwe on Wednesday as the citizens seek to escape the country's economic turmoil. The issue has become a central theme in the election scheduled for tomorrow. The country's main opposition party, the Citizens Coalition for Change, held its final rally in the country's capital, Harare. 1/6 of the registered voters are first-time voters. In the ongoing violence between Russia and Ukraine, Russia has once again accused Ukraine of drone attacks on Tuesday. Russian officials claim to have brought down 2 Ukrainian drones near Moscow and 2 drones over the Bryansk region that borders Ukraine. No casualties were reported. However, the airspace above Moscow was briefly closed and operations in 3 major airports suspended. Russian military also claimed the debris from the drones caused damage to a high-rise residential building and also smashed windscreens of cars parked below. Dasha Chernyshyova reports from Moscow.
Russia says it repelled yet another Ukrainian drone attack against the Russian capital. According to the city mayor Sergei Sobyanin, 2 drones were shot down near Moscow in the area of Chastsy and Krasnogorsk in Moscow region. As a result, one of the residential multi-story buildings in Krasnogorsk had the windows on several floors knocked out, and the cars parked near the house were also damaged. Airspace over the region was briefly closed during this drone raid, halting air traffic at the capital's international airports. Another drone attack was repelled in the Bryansk region, according to Russia's Ministry of Defense. 2 drones were detected by the Russian air defenses and jammed by electronic warfare. The ministry also said that on Tuesday its forces had destroyed a US-made military speedboat near the Snake Island in the Black Sea. Early in the day, it was reported that a reconnaissance boat was discovered near Russian gas production facilities in the Black Sea. It was neutralized by the crew of Su-30 SM fighter jet. Dasha Cherneshova in Moscow, reporting for DD India.
And time now for all the sporting action. Deepika joins us for that. Deepika, Pragyananda is the flavor of the day, isn't he?
Yeah, of course he is. The final is currently on, Munmun, and let me tell you, he just took 17 minutes to make his next move. So with this, India's Pragyananda has created history at the FIDE World Cup in Baku, Azerbaijan. Continuing his dream run, Pragyananda took world number 3, Fabiano Caruana, out of his comfort zone and pulled him into shorter time control games and nailed him for the title. Indian prodigy is currently up against world number 1 Magnus Carlsen in the final. The match is currently on. Pragyananda has now become the 3rd youngest to qualify for the candidates tournament after Bobby Fischer and Magnus Carlsen. He is also the first Indian to reach the World Cup final since the knockout format was introduced back in the year 2005. In soccer, a penalty from captain Martin Odegaard gave 10-man Arsenal a battling Premier League victory at Crystal Palace. Mikel Arteta's side looked comfortable to beat Crystal Palace by 1-0. Arsenal now joins Brighton and Manchester City on 6 points from 2 games, while Palace failed to build on their opening day victory at Sheffield United. Spain's women's football squad received a grand welcome in Madrid early on Tuesday. Jorge Vilda's team defeated England by 1-0 in the finals, capping off a tournament that has broken attendance and TV records as well. It has raised hopes of a surge in interest for women's game as well.
Spain began their reign as Women's World Cup champions by arriving home to a welcome fit for heroes on the streets of Madrid. Fans packed the streets of the Spanish capital. Victorious La Roja paraded through with the trophy on an open-top bus. The players later got off the bus and took a stage where match winner and captain Olga Carmona was tossed up in the air by teammates.
This is a very special moment for all of Spain, but there is also something that is very difficult for me right now. As you know, yesterday was the day of many different emotions. For a moment, it was the best day of my life, and then it became the worst day of my life. I am honestly so proud to bring such happiness to the country, and now you all have the star that you all longed for. Not just the one we are wearing on our chest, but all the stars in the sky who have been there for us. This cup and these medals are yours. We dedicate them to you. Thank you, and thank you so much for all your support, the love you showed, and all the energy.
In Spain, 5.6 million watched the final, and it peaked at 7.4 million viewers, with data saying that 56.2% of the Spanish television audience was male. It is the first time Spain has won the competition since its inception in 1991. Sports Desk, DD India.
Global mountain biking talents converged at Swatch 9's 2023 mountain bike event at Green Hill Bike Park in Germany. Riders showcased their unprecedented skills on the course. Now, this unique event has once again created the space to elevate the sport to newer heights. Unfolding new tricks during a week-long session, the global event saw a raft of new tricks performed, including the world's first front flip cliffhanger from Spanish veteran Aguado and the first Superman seat grab Indian air performed by a woman on a downhill bike from Australia's Caroline Buchanan.
What biking skills there and what camera work, I must say.
And not only biking, the much-awaited final between Praggnanandhaa and Carlsen is currently on, and it is indeed on a very interesting stage right now.
Absolutely. Waiting for tomorrow to know who's the winner.
Yes.
Well, thanks, Deepika, for that. That's all then in this edition of DD India News Hour. But do let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. You can connect with us on Facebook, X, formerly known as Twitter. You know that by now. And Instagram. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. From all of us here in Delhi, thanks for watching DD India News Hour. Namaskar.